We would like to open our call to order, our meeting for Ways and Means to receive public comment on Board Bill number 1, which is the budget for the city of St. Louis. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Muhammad.
Here.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Present.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Present.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderwoman Evans. Chairwoman Davis.
Present.
7 present, you have quorum.
Thank you very much.
Would you like me to make a motion about the minutes, or are we not doing that?
We have a quorum, sir, and I will accept a motion for the minutes.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from the prior meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and second to adopt our minutes from June 3rd. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd. Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad.
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg. Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans. Chairwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderman Boyd. Alderwoman Howard. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Evans. 7 aye votes.
Thank you. We've adopted our minutes from June 3rd. I would like to take the opportunity to have the rules for public engagement read, please.
After the presentation of a bill at any public hearing, those identified as proponents and opponents and those with no position shall be heard alternately. All persons who wish to testify at a public hearing shall sign a list which shall be made available by the chair of the committee. The initial presentation of any witness shall be 3 minutes or another length set by the committee chair. However, it should take no longer than 5 minutes, except the permission of the committee chair. Any witness may respond to questions by members of the committee for an additional period of time to be determined by the committee chair. And any witness may submit written testimony to the committee at any time prior to the conclusion of a hearing on the bill or resolution. A list of names and addresses of all persons who testify at a public hearing in support or opposition or with no opinion to any bill or resolution, and a copy of each written testimony submitted shall be kept by the clerk as a public record and shall be available to the members of the committee and the members of the Board of Aldermen when they consider said bill. Alderwoman, you're muted.
Okay. How did I get muted? Oh, okay, thank you. I shall also share with you, committee members, that as we move forward in this hearing today, this is not a debate. This hearing, the time allotted is for us to hear from the public. Only if there is something that needs to be cleared up in a technical way with the budget based on a presentation or a question from a speaker, Paul Payne will be the one who will answer those questions. We are not debating. We are here to learn. We are here to get the pulse of the community. And please understand that I will stop you if you start trying to question a speaker. We want them to feel comfortable. We want them to use their time so that they can have their thoughts expressed to us and to the rest of the public. So I do appreciate you attending on a Saturday. I do appreciate the opportunity to hear from the public. And I am one who can testify to those who have never served on Ways and Means before. I always learn something new when the public testifies, and it helps me form my opinions as we move forward in the decision-making process. I have the list before me, and I will call the names as they are indicated and by the rules that were indicated. And please feel free to correct me rather, if I mispronounce your name, because we want to have clarity. And so let's start with the speakers. We have one speaker in favor, and that is Timothy Garten. And sir, you can feel free to start. Okay. If Mr. Garten comes online later on, we'll come back to him. But that was our first speaker, and that's the only speaker that we have in favor. So we'll
Madam
definitely.
Chair, it looks like he's in the attendees list with his hand up.
Oh, I don't see that. I'm sorry.
Well, I think he needs STLTV's help to get in as a panelist.
Okay. Because he's on the speaker list, which means he should have been added to be on the panel.
Yes, he was sent an invitation, but must not have used it. I promoted him to panelist, and
Hi, Madam Chairwoman.
Yes.
I apologize. They sent me a link this morning, but I think I ended up with the listener link, so I apologize for that. But I appreciate you connecting me in.
Thank you very much, sir.
And
Please go right ahead.
You can probably change me from being Godzilla as well.
No, well, one thing I want to make sure that all of our speakers understand, this is your time. We're going to start with 3 minutes, okay? But we also want to share with you, please state your name clearly for us and anything else that you want to say about you, okay? Plus your state. Thank you.
Okay. So my name is Timothy Garten. I'm a resident of the city. I live in Ward 20. I've lived in the metropolitan area since 1987. I started living here in Hazelwood and lived for a while in University City, and now am in the city. And I live in the area of Dutchtown, and I absolutely encourage the direction that the council, that the Board of Aldermen is going. I support especially any additional support and funding that the Board of Aldermen might be able to do for public safety. And from a public safety perspective, my hope is that we would be able to do that with allocations to social services, with public health, as it has a mental health component, as overall public safety has a strong mental health component to it, as well as outreach programs that the police department, the fire department, and EMS have for kids, as well as the rest of our citizens. I also absolutely encourage not only the currently proposed budget for the police department, but I propose the expansion, if that's possible, of the police department budget. I think that the police department budget has a lot of different things that it supports. And I feel as though the first programs that would be diminished or would be eliminated would be those community outreach programs that are so valuable. You know, if I look at the overall budget of the police department, it isn't going to be officers on the street that are the first cutbacks. It's going to be all those programs that really reach out. And as a resident of Dutchtown, I've had a number of times where I've needed assistance on maybe a non-emergency basis from the police. I've needed help when my car was stolen. I've needed advice from the police department in terms of home security and community security. And I feel as though if there are any reductions in the budget of the police, it is not in traffic stops and in police on the beat that's going to happen. It's going to be in those programs that directly affect the community because they're the least urgent. And I think they're the most likely to be eliminated. So in light of the allocations that the city has gotten from the federal government in terms of these COVID protection programs and the influx of money that we're having, you know, I'd suggest that money's fungible. Every dollar is exactly like every other dollar. And if the mayor's office is able to take over, you know, and fund some of these things, which it looks like she's going to do, maybe there's no real reason to take money away from the police department.
All right, sir. I thank you very much for your comments. Feel free to stay on for the entire meeting. You may garner some additional information too. So I'd like to go to my next speaker now. And that is all the speakers from this point on are speaking against Board Bill number 1. And we'll start with Dr. Christy Griffin.
There we go. All righty. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to be able to express my feelings against additional funding for policing and reimagining community policing. I have been asked to start.
Yes, please.
My video. Okay, are we there? Okay. There are a number of people who will be speaking and expressing cogent reasons why it's imperative to divest from a failed system of over-policing and to reimagine a community that's both safe and thriving. For too many of us in St. Louis, it is anything but thriving. You will hear, I'm sure, countless reasons why the only effective way to respect and protect the lives of every citizen and those who visit our city is to invest in those things that will build strong citizens and to begin to undo the damage that years of discrimination has done to this community. Those who balk at the notion of divesting the police department of millions of dollars would have no reason to object, but for the billions of dollars that have been divested from North St. Louis and the silence when that was taking place. I am not anti-police by far. The first person I met with after founding the Ethics Project in 2007 was former police chief Ron Henderson. The second person I met with was then Captain John Hayden, currently our chief of police. I've worked with Chief Dotson, Chief Fitch, Chief Belmore, and until his appointment as the Director of Public Safety, Dan Isom was one of our members of our board of directors and chair of the National Youth Summit, which we host annually. My opposition to this bill is not in opposition to the police. I understand that it will take generations to undo the criminal culture created by greed and by injustice. My opposition is to over-policing and to a system that has repeatedly failed to weed out bad police and to hold accountable those who slip through the cracks. Policing has been used as the door to mass incarceration, a system that now imprisons more African Americans than were enslaved at the time of the Emancipation Proclamation. The system in its entirety is one that has replaced slavery as the economic engine of this country, St. Louis included. And while it generates massive amounts of profits for some, it has left 2.7 million children without a parent in the home. 1 out of every 4 African-American children over the age of 14 has at least one parent in prison.
3 minutes.
Okay. I probably could. I have about 40 seconds more.
I shall allow you, you can take another minute to finish.
Okay, thank you. I think 40 seconds will be fine. It is a system that has increased mental and physical health that were exacerbated during the pandemic. It's a system with tentacles reaching every aspect of our lives and ensures not our safety, but the continued wealth of those who profit. So I'm here to say one thing. Let's be honest. Let's admit that we can never police our way to safety. Let's admit that the historical nature of policing Black bodies has destroyed many of our communities and neighborhoods. And let's admit that the intentionality of this system, a system that I was told by one of your deceased members, is designed to find candidates to fill prison beds. If we're going to do anything here today, let's do one thing. Let's be honest. If you look at our neighborhoods, policing is not about keeping us safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Griffin. If you have that in written form, would you please forward it to our clerk?
Yes, I will.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Tony Taylor. We're going to move on. Our next speaker on the list is John Chestnut.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to the Ways and Means Committee. And I want to let you know how much I appreciate that annually we have this opportunity to weigh in before you on the city budget. I know that you all listen carefully to this testimony, and I much appreciate the chance for giving input today. I wonder sometimes if, because we did not have local control of the police department until 2013 and did not really have control over the police budget, if we developed a tradition of not really scrutinizing the police budget particularly closely. And I think that there's room in that budget to find programs that are ineffective, that are biased, and that need to be eliminated. Even if you don't agree with the general proposition that arresting and incarcerating is an inefficient system, other programs I think are well worth the scrutiny. So I wanted to hone in today on one particular program. It's one that we've been given a lot of information about recently. I'm referring to a Post-Dispatch article that appeared on Sunday about ShotSpotter and an editorial in the Post-Dispatch just a few days ago resulting from the information in that article. And then I want to hone in on a study that was done actually by the manager of the crime analysis unit inside SLMPD. And this was a study that was done released in January of 2020. And even this person, doing crime analysis inside the department found that ShotSpotter has been ineffective. That study showed that the program does not significantly reduce violent crime levels in any of the study periods that they looked at. And on top of that, it increases demands on police resources. So when folks are concerned about police response times, part of the problem is that we're tying police up with responses to an ineffective program. The study showed that, and I'm quoting here, that the additional increase in ShotSpotter calls produced little actionable data, and less than 1% of the responses led to enough information for the police to even file a report, less than 1%. They looked at a period from 2008 to 2018, 19,000 calls during that period, and they found that there were only 13 arrests that they said were uniquely identified with ShotSpotter, 13 out of 19,000. And on top of that, what the study shows is that human calls, when people actually call into the system, those calls are 7 times more effective in resulting in information. And so I think what we need to try to do is encourage call-ins rather than relying on the technology of ShotSpotter. But what has actually happened is when ShotSpotter is installed in an area, calls go down by 25%. So we're reducing community involvement, we're reducing community engagement, and reducing effectiveness by as much as 7 times per call when we reduce ShotSpotter. Now we have put, and if I, Madam Chair, if I could again have just another 30 seconds or so, I'll try to finish.
Go right ahead, sir.
Thank you so much. We put from the city budget $219,000 a year into this program. It's not a huge amount of money, but again, we're tying up police with responding to situations where they get there and there's really nothing to see. So that's money that's not being used effectively, plus hundreds of thousands of dollars from the Police Foundation. And I think this program, just to wind it up, this program I think is exemplary of the type of scrutiny that we need to look at the police budget. We need to find programs that are ineffective. And I just want to say that I think that Board Bill 31 will go a long way towards offering you all a process for doing this kind of scrutiny of surveillance technology. So I hope that you'll look more closely to take money out of the budget for ShotSpotter this year and pass Board Bill 31. Thanks so much.
Okay, Mr. Chestnut, if you have your statements in writing, could you please send it to the committee?
I'd be more than happy to. Thank you.
All right. Our next speaker is Erica Vogler.
Hi, Erica Vogler.
Vogler, okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. My name is Erica Vogler, and I am a city resident living in the 8th Ward. I'm also a social worker at a local St. Louis agency serving people with severe and persistent mental health issues and substance use disorders. I and my coworkers are not paid nearly enough for the work that we do. My clients do not have access to the resources they need to live fulfilling lives, like co-pays for medications, bus passes to travel to work and other important appointments, and rent money for apartments in neighborhoods of their choosing. Defunding the police and reallocating those funds to programs like mine would support social workers in sustaining themselves in this field, and would more importantly provide people receiving services with resources to navigate their community safely while making steps towards recovery. The fact that the policing expenses for this fiscal year from the general fund were greater than the combined expenses of the fire department, recreation and forestry, streets, health and hospitals, and health and human services should give all St. Louisans pause. We have voted with our dollars to live in a city that gives its greatest priority to a police force that murders more citizens per capita than any other in the country. Our most marginalized neighbors facing eviction, serious illness, and other pressing needs are left to fend for themselves. I've witnessed the police harass the people I serve, including tasing nonviolent people in the midst of psychiatric episodes. The police in St. Louis are not preventing violence, but are in fact adding to the stress of people living on the streets, fearing that the cops will show up and add to the trauma they face daily. Given the support needed by people across the city in the midst of the ongoing pandemic, we should reallocate funding to focus on the root cause of violence instead of perpetuating the myth that policing will save our community. So I'm demanding that the Ways and Means Committee defund ShotSpotter, the Real-Time Crime Center, and all vacant police positions, SWAT, and police overtime. All funds should be reallocated to programs that support our neighbors in need and paying wages to workers serving our most vulnerable citizens. Thank you.
Very much. And I'm going to suggest to all speakers, if you have your statement in writing, please send it in to us. With the
And
same.
to clarify, is that Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, I was about to say that. Please send it to our clerk for the Board of Alderman, Terry Kennedy, and you already have his email address. Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Joshua. Is it Salem?
It's Salim.
Okay, go right ahead, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Joshua Salim. I work in the 28th Ward as the Peace Education Program Director for the American Friends Service Committee, which means I have the privilege of partnering with young people in this city to help them see their own power to create change and organize for change. And I'm here this morning to echo the calls that have already been made to invest in holistic and community-based public safety, because we know that if we keep doing the same things we have been doing as it relates to crime and public safety, we have no reason to believe or evidence to suggest that we will see different results. So I'm here to advocate for the reallocation of city funds spent on police overtime in particular to other areas of the budget where it will actually address root causes of crime. I'm also here to bring the voices of the young people that we partner with into this conversation and lift up what they're demanding when it comes to safety in their schools and in their communities. This last fall, we asked our young people, if you had the decision-making power over millions of dollars in school and city budgets, how would you invest in and provide safety for your friends and family? We had one young person, 17 years old, say, quote, "I would redirect the money to our counseling department. Mental health is often swept under the rug. In America, having mental health issues is labeled as unfit or crazy. And in Missouri, approximately 51,000 teens have some sort of mental health issue, depression, ADHD, anxiety, etc." Unquote. Another young person talked about wanting to see more classes in their school, more teachers, more field trips, and just overall wanting to feel safe. Lastly, another young person, 16 years old, said, quote, "If we could reallocate funds, I would focus more money towards counseling and restorative practices. So many schools don't have enough regular counselors and don't even pay attention to hiring those equipped to deal with trauma. If we focused more money on building our young people, we wouldn't have to focus so much towards disciplining or punishing them." Close quote. This last statement is important to me, especially because it speaks to the dominant punitive paradigm operating in our schools, but also in our community at large. Budgets like the city of St. Louis's reflect this approach. There's an over-reliance on security, surveillance, and police. And how is that working out for us?
All right, please finish.
Just 10 more seconds, sorry. We need to shift to a restorative paradigm that focuses on getting to the root causes of harm, repairing that harm, and making those who have been harmed feel whole again, because the current punitive arrest and incarcerate model neither reduces crime nor increases safety. And so, yeah, with that, I thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Our next speaker is Joe Shepherd.
Jay Shepherd.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jay. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am an organizer with Action St. Louis. I'm a resident of the 25th Ward. What I'm asking the Ways and Means Committee and our elected officials is to truly examine how we currently do public safety, how costly, ineffective, harmful, and deadly SLMPD is. We want real solutions to the problems and not officers who are trained and conditioned to use force and will use deadly force at any conceivable moment. I want the $1.2 million currently used to fund SWAT, which was created to actively keep people from rising up and from protesting, invested into funding non-police first responders, substance use counselors, street nurses that actually address mental health crises or drug overdose with care and attention and not increased harm and violence. SWAT has been sold to us as being necessary for hostage situations and active shooters, but in most scenarios, that actually makes up 3% of their deployments. And the majority of SWAT's time is spent abusing protesters who are demanding justice and accountability. SWAT has dragged me, body slammed my friends, threatened to burst out my car windows if I didn't get out, maced me without warning, tear gassed me, all for my justified rage and anger over the murder of Mike Brown, Von Darren Myers, and Kiwi Herring, and many other lost community members at the hands of the police. The FY22 proposed budget calls for a cut in 98 vacant positions, and we want the rest of those positions cut. We need to cut and get that $6 million invested into affordable housing, public education, mental and medical health care, and violence prevention programs, investments that actually promote public health and safety. I want the FY22 budget to divest from Real-Time Crime Center and ShotSpotter, which exists to surveil and criminalize Black and Brown communities. Our communities don't want to be watched 24/7. ShotSpotter can't even tell the difference between a firework and a gunshot. ShotSpotter often sends police to scenes where there's no evidence of a shooting, as John was saying, thereby wasting time and potentially being deadly for many Black and Brown residents in St. Louis. It's the cause of 13-year-old Adam Toledo's death in Chicago.
30 seconds.
Why are we spending nearly $2 million on an ineffective, deadly surveillance system? For every $1 the city spends from the general fund on police, the city spends less than a penny on health and human services. In other words, from the general fund, the city is proposing to spend $567 per STL resident on police, $6 per resident on health and hospitals, and $5 per resident on human services. The complete and utter divestment from SLMPD is the bare minimum. What we really want is to not be surveilled, criminalized, harassed, murdered. What we really want is lives returned. What we want is a St. Louis that cares about the health and well-being of Black and Brown residents.
3 minutes.
Please take another 30 seconds and finish.
Police continue to harm our communities, and their budgets are diverting us from resources that we need. And I want a city that envisions communities where every person is able to thrive and live a life safe from all forms of violence. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Inez Bordeaux.
Good morning. Thank you all for doing this morning. I super appreciate it. My name is Inez Bordeaux. I'm an organizer with Arch City Defenders. I'm a mother of 4. I'm a nurse, and I'm a resident of the 9th Ward. I come to you today to stand against Board Bill 1 because there is more work to do. There is more cuts that need to be made before this budget is passed. We spend a whopping 36% of our general fund budget just on the police. And when we add the further arrest and incarcerate model, the jails and the courts, that number jumps up to around 52%. We spend 52% of our general fund budget locking people up and prosecuting them. Of course, we have a crime problem in St. Louis. We don't have money for anything else. We don't have the money for the social service programs that this city needs. And while we're spending 52% of our budget on the police are only solving about 30% of violent crimes. And Chief Hayden has already come out and said a couple weeks ago that other than homicide, crime is down all over the city. I'm a member of the Defund, Re-Envision, Transform campaign, and we crunched the numbers. We spend $195,000 per police officer every single year. That's salary, that's equipment, that's health insurance, that's pension. And with that $195,000 that we're spending per police officer every single year, you know what we could do with $195,000 that would do more to decrease crime and poverty in St. Louis? We could send 27 people to Forest Park or any of our St. Louis community colleges for 2 years to get them an associate's degree. That would do more to lift people out of poverty and reduce crime than that single police officer. And if we just take the cost of one police car at around $17,000, we could afford to pay the rent for all 27 people and their families in a 2-bedroom apartment anywhere in the city to further support them while they're going through their education process. We can pay rent for those people to support their education process. We have more police per capita than 92% of cities in this country. We have more police per capita than New York City, than Detroit, than LA, than Houston. And we spend 85% more of our budget than many other major cities in our area. It is time for us to divest from the police. It is time for us to invest in people. If we all want public safety, I more than anyone, I think, want to feel safe in my neighborhoods, but we don't do that by criminalizing people. We don't do that by surveilling people. We don't do that by locking people up. We do that by investing in them, by giving them what they need. We don't have a single walk-in drug treatment program in this city. We don't have a single walk-in shelter for the unhoused in this city. We don't have a single city funded program that supports survivors of domestic violence. We are not giving people the tools that they need. We all expect people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, but the people we're talking about do not have boots. How can they pull themselves up by their bootstraps if they don't have boots? Until we begin to invest in people, until we begin to invest in communities, we will not be safer. As much money as we spend on the police and surveillance and jails and courts, you would think St. Louis would be one of the safest cities in this country, but it's not. And it's not because it doesn't work. So instead of thinking of this as defunding the police, think of this as we are funding our futures. Think about the that $195,000 that $100,000 that I was talking about. Imagine what if we can put 27 people through college for $197,000 for the cost of one police officer. Imagine what we could do if we defund those other 100 vacant positions within the police department. Imagine what we can do if we defund ShotSpotter. Imagine what we can do if we defund the Real-Time Crime Center. Imagine what we can do if we defund SWAT. Imagine what we can do And I understand that this is hard. I understand that this is scary. I understand that we're trying to do something that has never been done before, but it is time for us not just to have the political will, it is time for us to have the courage and the foresight to do what is best for our city. And what is best for our city is not to continue to fund the police department that kills more people per capita than any other police department in the entire country. So again, we're talking about defund the police, but if it makes you feel better, think of it as funding our future. Thank you again for having me. I appreciate all of your hard work. I'll be sending emails to all of you, so I hope to hear back and meet with you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Toby Matava. Please correct me because I'm sure I did it wrong. Toby?
No, actually, you did it perfectly. Thank you.
Wow. Okay.
Good morning, and I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Toby Matava, and I'm a resident of the 7th Ward in the city. And I just want to echo everything that the previous speakers have said. Everybody's made wonderful points, and some of the same points I myself would be making here. I am here to urge you to vote against accepting Board Bill 1 in its current form. And I hope that you will use this process to further re-envision, reimagine, and transform what we do as a city to ensure all of our public safety. I just moved to St. Louis in 2019 after I retired as a university librarian. And while I still have a lot to learn about the city, especially since we've been dealing with COVID, what is really evident to me is that what we have been doing in the name of public safety is simply not working. I could go on. There have been numerous studies and scholars that point to the systematic removal of resources from large swaths of the city, specifically the north side, and the resulting inequalities as one of the causes for the high rate of crime in the city. The police department budget is currently formulated, taking up nearly 36% of the entire budget. And as Inez pointed out, a lot more than that when you consider the other resources involved. That level of funding simply has not lessened the incidence of crime in the city or made us feel safer. The continued funding of the departments and programs that are not working is simply a waste of our taxpayer dollars. I want to urge you to use the city budget to address the root causes of crime. There's 3 areas that I specifically think you should consider defunding: the Shot Spotter program, the Real-Time Crime Center, and police overtime. The funds recouped from these areas alone can be used to reinvest in training personnel programs that will support the community and provide a real opportunity for us to get at those root causes. Rather than spending money on ineffective surveillance programs, let's recruit and train unarmed responders, people who can answer 911 calls that involve mental illness or substance abuse issues or other nonviolent issues. We could create new sobering centers and safe spaces where people who are affected can go for support and get the help that they need to detox, to restart, to renew their lives. Or we can reallocate those funds to create new educational programs for our youth and provide our children with the opportunities they need to develop. I'm almost done. To develop their skills and reach their full potential. When the needs of all of our citizens are met and we reinvest our resources in the community rather than in policing and surveillance, we all are safer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Clerk, I'm going to ask, did you see the last message that was sent to me? And I would like to ask you all to make a determination on how I should move forward on it. Thank you. Here I am. Our next speaker is Charles Buchanan. Okay, we're gonna move on to Ryan Walsh.
Thank you, Ms. Speaker. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to present today against Board Bill 1. I've been a resident of St. Louis since 2011. I currently live in Maplewood, and I have for nearly 4 years. I also lived 4 years in St. Charles County Jail, awaiting trial the entire time before I pled guilty. I spent 2 years on probation thereafter, and the entire time I was branded a violent and mentally ill criminal. I have thoughts on this entire process. First, I'd like to suggest that we are in the middle of a revolution in what we might think of as the human situation generically. The human situation, as we imagine it, has been hampered by a very limited number of options. And now that we're in the internet age, our options have just multiplied and mushroomed. I could tell you about how I think we should reimagine crime. I think crime has been an inside-out sickness. And after years of sickness that we all saw happening, someone finally enforced the letter of the law. The prisons are full of sick and fragile members of society. I would like to point out transformative options for our sick and fragile that didn't even exist before. We have never had these options. Each of the next 3 interventions is actually a dramatic leap forward in the human situation for $500. These new options make money spent on policing look perverted. The first option is selfdecode.com, selfdecode.com. It's an analysis of your own genetics that's almost a revolution in mental health up there with Freud, simply because it's such a healthy, insightful, and accurate way to relate to your own inner self. It costs less than $500 for a lifetime subscription, and this fundamental insight into who we are and what we're about, even on a genetic level, it will more than pay for itself. And I think this $500 investment in our human situation makes many other expenditures in the city budget look fundamentally perverted. In fact, we got started rolling. There's an inertia with the police department that got started rolling because we never had selfdecode.com on the table in the first place. Please instead enable the criminals in our society to relate to themselves on the sophisticated level of self-decode. I think it will pay for itself. The second option is Mendi.io, MENDI.io. It's a therapeutic biofeedback device for $300. Some patients have recorded up to 40% increases in their ability to concentrate after the use of the Mendi. It's just a way to grow and train and repair your brain. And it's just a neurofeedback, a biofeedback device for $300. And the existence of this $300 device makes so many other options look perverted, it's not even funny. Once again, there's an inertia of what was going on before, and that inertia got started because these weren't even on the table in the first place. The third option I'd like to point out is VLight, VIELIGHT. It's called photo biomodulation. I'm sorry. VLight is actually a very inexpensive version of red light therapy. I would like you to please consider spending institutional money on these fundamental and material advancements in our human situation. If you fire one police officer who earns $30,000 a year, you could buy 600 St. Louis criminals a lifetime subscription to Self-Decode, or even like 1,800 criminals their Mendi device. The return in the safety in our human situation will be so much more impressive than with the police officer. Second, I'd like to point out that the institution you fund directly could either be a probation office or something like the Independence Center. Up front, it's like the city has a choice to create either Mayberry or Fallujah. The arrest incarcerate model in St. Louis is in fact Fallujah. Arrest incarcerate actually teaches the necessity of an authoritarian leader in an unsafe crowd. What the Independence Center teaches is an inclusive sense of community that creates cohesion and safety up front in that exact same crowd. Somehow, from inception, the first building is stained with authoritarianism and a sense of unsafe crowds, and the second building is cohesion and community with the exact same people. I beg you to please buy my sense of community and cohesion that I participate in at the Independence Center instead of an authoritarian sense of a crowd out there. Third, we're not just looking at a building from the outside, whether it creates community. The interests that society claims in its arrest and incarcerate model are better accomplished through the gentle support of something like the Independence Center. In short, I swear to you that an Independence Center is how you should have accomplished the supposed aims of my own probation a few years ago. The Independence Center is actually proof that the other institution is somehow fundamentally backwards or perverted. The first example I have is employment. the interest society claimed in my probation was like a perverse catch-22. They publicized me as a mentally ill criminal and then told me to get a job. It was literally impossible. The Independence Center, in contrast, helped me to find a job. And when I go back to that job soon, I will have been there nearly 4 years. So in short, it was the mentality, the institution, the community of the Independence Center, and not the authoritarianism for probation that actually accomplished my interests of employment. I promise you, other interests, such as medication and keeping a homeless man off the streets, were dramatically, ridiculously accomplished by investing in the community resource of the Independence Center and not with anything in probation. So that's like all my thoughts for today, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh, did you hear our comments? If you have your statements in writing, please forward it to our clerk, Terry Kennedy.
Will do.
All right, thank you very much. Our next speaker is Christine. Is it Dragonette?
Dragonette.
Dragonette, all right.
Thank you. Yeah, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Christine Dragonette. I'm a resident of the 13th Ward, and I'm also a social worker, and I work in the 19th Ward. I'm speaking today in opposition of BB1 in its current form. I support the budget cuts for vacant police department positions already recommended, and I'm advocating for additional cuts to be made specifically to ShotSpotter, the Real-Time Crime Center, SWAT, all the vacant police positions, and police overtime. In my role as a social worker, I work with people experiencing poverty and homelessness to facilitate their getting state ID cards and birth certificates, which everyone needs in order to access housing, employment, public benefits, education, and basically everything. At our program, we always ask what people need their ID for. The other week, I spoke with someone who said one of the reasons he needs his ID is to be able to show it to police when they harass him on the streets. Situations like this are not uncommon. People in St. Louis's lives, especially those with limited resources, are made more difficult, not easier, by contact with the police. Additionally, at our program, when someone needs mental health support or has a crisis, they need to be connected with people who are trained to meet their needs and support them. The police are just not trained to do that. I'd like to see us continue to move in the direction of things like diverting emergency calls to behavioral health response and other similar supports. At my work, we also host one of the emergency winter shelters that's open a couple nights a week when it's projected to be extra cold. We're one small part of a broader network of people and organizations who largely scrape together their own resources to try to fill the gaps and ensure that people who need to go inside have a safe place to stay. Our shelter volunteers are not trained to support people whose mental health and behavioral health symptoms make it challenging for them to stay inside in a congregate setting. Because of the lack of resources and support, many of those folks are banned from local shelters and have few, if any, options. But everyone deserves to have a safe place to stay, and we need to ensure that our city offers spaces with low barriers to coming inside and compassionate support. Our city should be funding both adequate emergency shelter and affordable permanent housing that is integrated throughout the city. Numerous police reforms have been attempted but have failed and simply put more money into the police when that money is desperately needed elsewhere. Instead of being harassed or worse by the police, people in St. Louis want and need investment in health and human services, affordable housing of all kinds, health and mental health, and more, so that we have the resources we need for all of us to thrive. These are the investments that will actually reduce crime. Thank you.
Seconds.
All right, thank you very much. Our next speaker is last name Simmons, and you share your first name.
Good morning. My name is Montega Simmons.
All righty.
Thank you. First, thank you to the committee and its chairperson for continuing to allow public comments on the budget. Before you actually end up moving into your own closed debate, it felt right to share a quick word to clarify some things about the concept of defund. First, the frame that tends to actually trigger such a visceral reaction from elected officials was not invented or propagated via some white liberal conspiracy. It reflects a political vision embodied by the Vision for Black Lives political platform, which was released in 2016 by the Movement for Black Lives, directly in the wake of uprisings, including the ones that engulfed this very city. One section of that platform focuses deeply on the concept of invest, divest. So when we advance the call to defund police, it means divesting from institutions that kill, harm, cage, and control our communities, and investing in housing, healthcare, income support, employment, community-based safety strategies that will produce genuine and sustainable safety for all. Apologies, my screen just stopped for some reason. Okay. It's also a strategy that we, speaking as a native St. Louisan, should be very familiar with, as it's one that's often been used consistently against Black and poor communities for generations. From Team 4 to Homer G. Phillips, we've seen our communities be starved of resources, public services, from healthcare to good food, while the budget, scope, and scale of policing have continued to expand. Defund is explicitly a call to our civic imagination that says we can innovate remedies that are not rooted in criminalizing and caging members of our community, that if they had housing, healthcare, mental health, access to education and jobs, may not find themselves desperate or in a mode to survive. Programs like Caring Community emerged directly out of the Black community and engaged in real healing and transformation until it was effectively defunded out of existence. Defund is a call to acknowledge that we have the resources we need to transform our communities, but we need the political courage to prioritize healing instead of caging. Defund, as you hear it presented, is a weapon that is now being used to reclaim and reprioritize our community's healing instead of continuing to invest in criminalizing and caging our people. It's a call to be on the right side of history and use both the faith and power that have actually been invested in you to heal the wounds that have actually been inflicted on our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Chris Wilcox.
Good morning. Mr. Kennedy, members of the committee, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Chris Wilcox, pronouns he, him, and I'm an organizer with St. Louis Mutual Aid. I'm here to support Action St. Louis to re-envision public safety and allocate much needed funding to help our neighbors meet their material needs. We all have experienced the effect of years of further and further investment in expansion of the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. We have the highest rate of police killings per capita in the country and are no safer from crime. I am grateful we have already made great progress in this bill by cutting from vacant police positions and reallocating resources to housing and health. I believe we can do even better by zeroing out the rest of the vacant positions and dismantling surveillance of the community by ending the Real-Time Crime Center and ShotSpotter. I also ask that we end SWAT, which is most often used to bring militarized violence to people exercising their constitutional rights. None of these programs have demonstrated any gains in public safety. Instead, I would ask that we use these funds to further invest in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and helping our neighbors stay in their homes. I talk to neighbors every week who are at risk of eviction, exposing them and their children to unnecessary harm, especially with the looming threat of eviction of moratoriums expiring. COVID ravaged the life and economic security of people we love. And instead of investing in police programs that have no demonstrated results, we can use these resources to keep people in their homes and finally provide homes for our unhoused neighbors. I ask that you amend the current bill to reallocate funds from the remaining police vacancies and police surveillance programs, demilitarize the SMPD, and use these resources to ensure that every one of our neighbors has a safe and secure home. Thank you for your time. I hope we can build progress that has already been made to re-envision public safety for St. Louis.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Amelia Hinckley.
Hello, my name is Amelia. I'm a resident of the 15th Ward, and I'm actually currently at the Tower Grove Farmers Market, so I'm sorry if you hear any dogs or children in the background. But I am here speaking in opposition to Board Bill 1 because it simply does not go far enough in defunding the police and using the money to actually invest in our communities. And today I would like to speak specifically about our SWAT department and the money that should be taken away from them to actually invest again in our communities. I was at an event a few weeks ago and I heard Alderman Oldenburg say something that just blew my mind at the absurdity of it. And he said, last year we had so much police overtime to, staff all the protests and to make sure that protesters were kept safe. And as someone who attended many protests, the police were actually the thing that kept us least safe. They were actually the institution that harmed us the most, just for standing there. For peacefully protesting, we were pepper sprayed, we were beaten, we were kettled. The police were the thing that we needed protection against. And so if that's what our SWAT money is going towards, to harming peaceful protesters who are exercising their First Amendment right, I find that to be a complete waste of money. Folks say that SWAT is there for hostage situations, active shooter situations, but the reality is that those calls make up a minuscule portion of their actual time. Only about 3% of their calls go towards active shooter and hostage situations, whereas most of their time goes towards brutalizing innocent protesters, people who, again, are just calling for them to be held accountable. And actually, I think that the protest community shows a beautiful example of what we could be. We have folks there who are street medics, again, patching people up after the police have beat them. We have folks there who are marshals protecting the roadways to make sure that both drivers and people are safe. We have folks there giving out food and water, making sure that people have sunscreen on these really hot days. And that is an example of the community that we should be building, not one in which tanks roll through our streets to hurt our own citizens for exercising their rights. So there's just really no need for SWAT to exist, especially if its main job at the moment is to, again, hurt innocent people who are speaking their minds, who are peacefully protesting. There is no protester that I know of that has ever felt safe by the presence of police. We keep ourselves safe, and the $1 million or so that goes currently towards SWAT could actually be used to invest in, again, the root of crime. We say this over and over and over again. There's dozens of people here today saying that. I don't know how many times we have to say that for the Ways and Means Committee to get it through their head that the police do not keep us safe. But every $1 million that goes towards a tank could be used for housing, could be used for food, could be used for job training. And so it's just really insane to me that we keep having this discussion and you keep not listening. But we are here today to say defund the police, continue to make those cuts that the Board of E&A already started. That is the real pathway forward for safety in our city. And I hope that you listen to people from across the city when they say us and do not continue to dismiss us as just activists or whatever else you all like to call us, when we are residents of your city who are here, invested, showing up time and time and again to tell you what is actually going on. So defund the police, cut SWAT, cut all of the other departments people have talked about, and put that money into actually helping our citizens. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Trayvon Latimer. Trayvon Latimer.
All right, yes, I'm here.
Okay, there you are.
Thank you, Ways and Means Committee, for providing space for us again today to voice our thoughts and concerns about the fiscal year 22 budget. My name is Trayvon. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm a city resident residing in Ward 6. I'm also a senior policy fellow at Ford through Ferguson. And like many others who have already spoken, I'm speaking against Board Bill number 1. I support all cuts recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment already, including the multi-million-dollar decrease in funding associated with vacant positions, and would like to request more cuts to the budget, including further cuts from SWAT, the Real-Time Crime Center, Shot Spotters, police overtime, and the rest of the vacant positions. I'm requesting those funds be reinvested into proven public safety alternatives that will target the root causes of crime to measurably decrease violence in the city. The major outcome of the Ferguson Commission's process in 2015 is that when asked to address the root causes of Michael Brown's murder, the community strongly emphasized policy priorities ranging from fair housing and equitable education to accessible transportation and a living wage. I'm sure that we all know that the root causes of violence and crime are not a lack of personal responsibility or prevalence of ill-natured people. It is a lack of housing, a lack of healthcare, a lack of mental health resources, a lack of educational investments, a lack of economic opportunity, all rooted in decades-long segregation, redlining, voting disenfranchisement, and other attempts to strip power and money from Black and Brown communities. We must completely turn away from a system that uses armed police as a remedy for crises that are rooted in these issues. We must turn toward a system that prioritizes restoration over incarceration, grace over criminalization, and healing over punishment. Some specific initiatives we can fund are a first responder alternative program, similar to the ones in Oakland, Denver, Olympia, Washington, Eugene, Oregon, and other places where they train community members to independently respond to crises involving those with mental health needs, the in-house, those with substance abuse issues, and others. We can also invest in initiatives like Dream Builders for Equity that tackles both vacancy and the lack of employment opportunities for youth, both root causes of crime. We can also invest in the Ferguson Commission call to create community justice centers that could cultivate new sentencing alternatives and well-being services that address root causes of crime, such as a sobering center, robust job training programs, housing resources, and 911 diversion call training. Police reform and police community relations are not enough to ensure safe communities and racial equity in St. Louis. It requires investments in long-term solutions that will radically and fundamentally change public safety. Now is the time for us as a city of St. Louis to be a national leader in investing in the well-being of our most impacted residents to create a more thriving city for all of us. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments. Our next speaker is Kevin Chestnut.
Good morning. Yes, I'm a resident of the 15th Ward. I'm here today to testify about a problem I experienced in St. Louis policing and its implication in city resource allocation and over-policing. I've submitted my testimony. I find it takes about 4 minutes to read over, so I'll leave that to the committee members to read the first page about the details of the situation. I'll simply say, yes.
I will allow you the 4 minutes, so go right ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. That will be a great benefit for all listening right now. It was on a quiet, late Friday afternoon in 2015 that I was enjoying Tower Grove Park near my home when I was living in the Shaw neighborhood at that time. I noticed a police traffic stop along the Arsenal side and thought to watch how the officer interacted with the driver. A few minutes later, I saw another traffic stop in front of St. John's Church across the street from me. I simply stood there to watch, but saw nothing happen. The officer never even exited her patrol car. After a few minutes, 2 other patrol cars arrived near me with lights flashing. Officer Dwayne Wallace came to me and asked my name and address, which I gave. He had me put my hands on my head and he frisked me, but found nothing. 2 other officers had come from the other car and stood sentinel at my side. Wallace told me I could put my hands down, and when I did, he ordered the other officers cuff him. I was shocked and alarmed as I was being cooperative, never even moving. I asked why I had been cuffed, but never got an answer. Officer Wallace's manner became belligerent. He would not tell me his name. He said he would book me downtown if I didn't give my social security number, but still indicated no charge against me. The traffic stop officer, Lavia Graham, also had come over to me, railing about how I didn't know how to correctly give my address. These 4 officers stood around me for about 15 minutes, not and I thought to myself, what a waste of taxpayer money for their time in descending upon me, and indeed what great harm to police community relations for this offensive and unconstitutional way they are confining me. Then a sergeant eventually arrived who released me. I filed complaints on these 4 officers, each complicit in violating my liberty, and I patiently followed through this with the police internal affairs for 17 months. At the outset, despite hand delivering the complaint forms to headquarters, I was told I was, quote, not the complainant, but instead an internal affairs sergeant would be. Also, the internal affairs commander, Adam Kelm, at the time, told me that most people don't watch the police. So this was, quote, reasonable suspicion under police policy to handcuff and confine me. In the letter conclusion to me, I got back lies about the officers in such a simple matter, and the identity of one of the cuffing officers was never even revealed, the one white officer present at the scene. I filed a civil rights lawsuit to challenge this antagonistic police behavior. The officers testified that they saw really no distinction between questioning a citizen and handcuffing them. In the end of the case, after 4 years, the appeals court found in my favor in my case, Chestnut v. Wallace, and against qualified immunity for Officer Dwayne Wallace. He did not have reasonable suspicions to handcuff me for anything. My conclusions at the end of this 5-year ordeal were, I figure, these key 5 ones. First, this could not be explained away as a one bad apple situation. 4 officers were cooperating in this obvious offense. And
30 seconds.
I'm sorry?
Go right ahead.
In this relaxed, no offense setting. I was shocked and terrified by this handcuffing by armed officers who were not acting reasonably, who were indeed being disrespectful and needlessly escalating tension in their descent upon me, as I was peacefully enjoying the park across the street from the traffic stop, not interfering in any way. Needless to say, it was an inappropriate waste of taxpayer money. Second, I felt that my neighborhood was under occupation by the police for their own agenda, for they certainly weren't being reasonable or protecting me or my community. This is a particular shock to me because for years in my neighborhood association employment with SLACO, I had actively encouraged cooperation between citizens and the police. This incident shredded any further trust of the police, both from the officer's behavior that day towards me and also in the tedious, deflecting manner of the investigations by internal affairs. I explain this every time I'm on a jury pool when they ask concerns about the credibility of police testimony. This manner of the police is so sad and a grievous harm to the community. Third, I was shocked that the officers I encountered confirmed in their depositions saw no significant distinction between questioning a citizen and handcuffing someone and being abrasive. The arrogance was terribly offensive. Asking questions of them was taken as a challenge to their authority when I simply needed to know why they were abusing me in public in a situation that was not stressful or confusing. Fourth point I learned. It seemed there was practically no accountability close to the incident for this police behavior. I had no indication that this offensive behavior had been brought to these officers' attention until the time of their depositions 3 years later. My complaint had not even been put on the record of the one white officer, Justin Ludwig, who helped to actually cuff me. And my fifth observation, I'm embarrassed that our city has allowed this sort of citizen abuse by police and that it was indeed confirmed as accepted policy within our police department. It was such a simple matter. I think of all those St. Louisans who have far less time and resources than I'm fortunate to have, or the hope to be able to persist through the long process to challenge such unconstitutional behavior of our police who disturb the peace. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you very much for your comments. You have sent them in writing as well.
I have.
All right, thank you. I know that I did miss one person. They may not have been online when we first got started. Tony Taylor. Okay, and did Charles Buchanan speak?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Those were the only 2 that I have that did not speak on the list. Now, there was one person who wanted to speak, and there was some confusion on whether or not we had actually received their their information for a request on time. So,
Chairwoman,
because, go right
if
ahead.
I have on this list also number 17 is Kennard Williams. And then we have a Tracy Spees and a Zoe Krauss.
So I don't have the cross, but I do have, I just hadn't got to him yet, but I
Okay.
do have Kennard Williams. I was trying to get the other two.
Okay.
That should have been earlier. But you
Yeah.
have who? Tracy?
Right. Yes, ma'am. Tracy Spees and I guess Zoe Krause, Krause.
So Cross, Tracy.
And I believe Zoe is in the attendees section, so we'll have STL to put them as a panelist.
Okay.
Thank
So that works for me.
Okay.
And now we'll move forward with Kennard Williams.
Hey, good morning, members of the Ways and Means Committee. My name is Kennard Williams. I'm a 28th Ward resident. I'm speaking today in opposition of Board Bill 1 in its current form, specifically due for the need of the public safety budget to reflect repeated calls from community members across the city and within your own constituencies to defund costly, inefficient programs within the police department and the police department itself. One such program specifically that should be cut is ShotSpotter, which costs our city an estimated $190,000 a year. The program has recently come under scrutiny due to its ineffectiveness in leading to any sort of tangible outcome as far as measurable public safety benefit. Without any sort of results, this is blind allocation of resources into the police department that regularly consumes over half of our city's budget. This irresponsible shift in funds is counterproductive to addressing the issues that the people in our city face in regards to public safety. The Board of Aldermen has a responsibility to ensure resource allocations within the city budget is as effective as possible in the impact of everyday citizens' lives. In the wake of a pandemic that has caused massive job loss, housing instability, and an increase in violent crime, it must be the priority of the committee and the board as a whole to seek investment into public safety measures that center addressing the root causes of crime, such as poverty and lack of investment in the communities that make up St. Louis. Criminalization of poverty, over-policing, and surveillance have been the model that have repeatedly led St. Louis to its current position. The funding of state-sanctioned murder, erosion of our civil liberties, and the infringement of our rights and our community members will not benefit our city. It is my hope that the committee will follow through with its obligation to invest in our communities by reassessing the budget in its current form again and make further cuts within the public safety budget to change the course that St. Louis is currently set for. We need serious increases in programming to support our current unhoused population, reduced housing instability, community-driven solutions for violence, mental health, and drug treatment programs. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go to Tracy Speed.
Good morning. Thank you for taking our comments this morning. My name is Tracy Spees, and I am a 15-year resident of the 11th Ward. I've been a social worker in the city of St. Louis, helping low-income older adults around issues of housing and homelessness for 13 years, and that is my area of expertise. I would like to speak against Board Bill 1 in its current form because it includes entirely too much money for the types of programs that we have found not to work. We have been increasing police. We have more police per capita here than most large cities, yet that has not deterred violence, that has not kept us safe. We as residents realize that the police do not keep us safe, that we keep each other safe. And we have one of the deadliest police forces in the nation. So less money for them and more money for community members and community services. If we defund programs like SWAT, the Real-Time Center and ShotSpotter, which has recently been found not to work by SLMPD itself, If we defund police overtime, if we take those resources out of the police budget, we can invest in things that actually do keep us safer and prevent crime. As in my first week on the job as a social work intern, I learned that housing is related to pretty much every other basic need an individual has to be healthy and successful in life. So where you live depends on your access to healthy food. It depends on your access to healthcare. It depends on your access to jobs, transportation. It depends on your access to education. Some people can't even get their prescription medicines because of where they live. So their housing needs to be our #1 priority, not funding the police. Mayor Jones' survey that she sent out to the community needs assessment and draft report, identified rent, mortgage, and utility assistance and support for the unhoused, as well as critical health needs as people's top priorities. So what we need to do at this point is to realize that investing in these things are the things that are going to keep us safer, not giving police more money and pouring more resources into these things that do not work and actually make us more unsafe, not safer. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. It appears that we're down to our final speaker. Zoe, can you give me your last name, please?
Yes, my name is Zoe Krauss.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for letting me speak, and I apologize for the confusion with my testimony this morning. I'm also testifying against Board Bill 1 in its current form, and particularly in support of what most people on this meeting have been saying about reimagining public safety and reallocating money that is not best used by the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department. I'm a resident of Ward 6, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. The reasons for my position are very simple. Funding police doesn't make us safer, and in fact, it makes a lot of St. Louisans, particularly Black and Brown St. Louisans, markedly less safe. As many other people have raised, the St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department kills more people per capita than any other police department in the country. And I know as a city resident and a longtime St. Louisan that St. Louis is full of a lot of wonderful things, and I believe in the future of this city, but we must stop being first in over-policing and police murder. Rewarding and expanding the deadliest police force in the country is reckless and irresponsible. As many other people have raised, there are more than 100 vacant police positions that the Board of Aldermen continues to provide funding for, even though many of these positions have been vacant for years. Defunding these positions, as well as the often misused police overtime budget, would free up millions of dollars that can be better used to fund programs that could achieve real public safety. And just like Tracy just raised, the community needs assessment indicated some key priorities for residents of St. Louis, the meeting critical health needs, rental, mortgage, and utility assistance, and support for the unhoused were top 3 priorities named. These sorts of programs are not best carried out by police or law enforcement, and residents of this city deserve to have their needs met compassionately, humanely, and not by the city's deadliest police force. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. To our committee members who have remained, we were going to finish out our agenda as it is outlined for us to do. We want to thank all of our speakers today. I'm sure you have been enlightened by many things. I know that I have. So what I'd like to do is to take our next item on our agenda. We don't have any resolutions before us. And I wanted to open with committee discussion. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and allow each one of our committee members to share your what I would consider to be your thanks and short comments that are not indicating on what anybody specifically talked about, because these are opportunities for us to listen and take information, but not ridicule or suggest that anybody is right or wrong. So I believe Alderman Boyd has left already. And Alderman Vaccaro.
I have no comments. I'll hold mine till we get to a different meeting.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Alderwoman Howard.
Only time, it's just appreciate the people coming out today and expressing their opinions. And thank you for your time. That's all I have.
Thank you. Alderwoman Spencer. Did she stay on? I didn't see her leave. Okay. Alderwoman Boyd had to go to a graduation, so she was present for most of it. Alderman Muhammad, are you still with us? I know he came in and out a couple of times. And Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank all the speakers for their incredibly articulate and persuasive statements regarding prioritizing our budget, and appreciate them taking an active role in local government. And there's still a lot of discussion and work to do with this budget, and those comments and statements I know will not be taken lightly by this committee, and appreciate them for their stories and comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Alderwoman Navarro.
Oops. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, and thank you to everyone who took time off their Saturday mornings to be here today to offer your input on the budget and share some of your own personal stories. It is very helpful to all of us. And Madam Chairwoman, I just wanted to let you know, I got a message from Alderwoman Spencer that she logged off just after the last speaker. So she was here for the meeting and didn't realize there was going to be a time for us to comment. But thank you again to everyone. I will hold my comments on, the larger discussion until our next meeting, but I very much appreciate everyone's time today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say thank you to all the people who came to spend their morning with us, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman Evans, I think you left too, didn't you?
Yes.
There you are back. Okay. Go right ahead.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, and all of the people that presented their perspective as to what should be done with this particular item. I appreciate your taking your Saturdays off to present your perspective on this. And that's all I have to say, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you very much. We had other aldermen who, alderpersons rather, who were listening as well. And Alderwoman Rice, I think you've been here for the entire session.
Yes, thank you,
right
Madam Chair. If I could just thank you for such a well-run public testimony meeting this morning. I appreciate everyone's comments, everyone taking their time to come out and speak to the board. All of us, even if we're not on the committee, are listening carefully and want to honor your comments and your stories that you've brought forward to us today. So thank you again, Madam Chair, for a very well-run public comment session.
Thank you. Alderman Gunther, are you still there? Because I know you came in a few times.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just echoing everyone's comments. Thank you so much for allowing us to have this public comment. And thank you everyone that showed up on a Saturday morning to let us know how you think our democracy should run. So thank you very much to the chairwoman and the members of the committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. I know she was trying to work on a couple of projects at the same time today. but I know that she did view a good portion of this session. So I appreciate her checking in. Also, for me, let me say thank you to all of you again. I do appreciate what I consider to be very valuable information. It allows us to go back and have good discussion. That's why I really wanted to see things come in writing, because we all try to take notes, but you might miss something. So we appreciate those opportunities to get it in writing as well. And most especially, I wanted to say to not just to the speakers, but because other folks will look at this later on, but to the public. We have a large task before us. We know that. We know that our country is in severe, and when I say that, that word is not strong enough, but we have major problems when it comes to our culture, our socialization, how we police. When the world looks at America as being one of the most violent countries, that says a lot in itself. So you don't even have to just worry about St. Louis. They said violent country. So we have a lot of work to do, and we will do that work. And it's going to take some time. We had hundreds of years that got us to where we are, but we know we need a number of things done, and we will get them done. And we also know that we need to have professionally trained people who can do some of the most dangerous tasks on our behalf. And so we will look at everything. And again, thank you for your time on this Saturday. And if anybody else has some additional time, I'm on my way to help some young people find a new dream, have a new activity, introducing them to soccer at Jet Banks Park. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you, clerk and STL TV. All right. Bye-bye.
Are we moving?
Okay, we back on. Thank you.
So I will make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All right, no aldermen need to be excused. Everybody was present at some point. But I'm trying to run. So we had a motion, we had a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, thank you.
Thanks, Marlene.
All right,
Have a
bye-bye.
good weekend, everybody.
Be safe. Have a great weekend.